Before we get into this week's episode, I just wanted to quickly thank you guys for the response that I got on last week's episode. Honestly, I didn't expect that kind of response from some people that I ended up getting, but I did hope for it because that's the point in the message behind this podcast being what it is. So I'm glad that at least in one episode I reached my goal of, you know, leaving some sort of impact on some people in some way. So thank you again for listening, taking the time to spend some of your day with me and listen to what I have to say. And going forward, I'm really excited to share the thoughts and the views and the opinions of my guests that I have. I'm grateful again for your support and your feedback and your time. The episodes going forward are pre-recorded from the time that, they are released to the world. So this episode was recorded a few months ago, actually. I think back in, I think actually back in February of this year. It's currently September. So, and a lot of it was me kind of trying to figure out the structure of this show and kind of how things work. So, pardon the strange introduction this week. This week's episode is featuring the one and only Matthew Gottlieb. Last week I talked about how I was a student in the SSA program, and Matthew Gottlieb was my agent. He was the person that I was working with on a weekly basis. Had it not been for the experience and the things that he did for me as a student in SSA, I would not be here mentoring and advising my own students and doing the things that I'm doing. Without further ado, friends, let's get into this week's episode. So I could sit here and talk about like the many hats that you've worn in SSA, but I feel like it would be more interesting to have you go through your timeline with SSA, because I'm also curious to know for myself like what your journey has been.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What a loaded question to start this
Yes.
off.
Sorry.
No. Never be sorry. Never be sorry. I think for context, SSA stands for Student Success Agency.
Yes.
And we are a education management company that partners with a lot of school districts across the country, school districts that are very underserved, and they come from overcrowded and underfunded institutions. So a lot of these students don't really have the resources that a typical guidance counselor would be able to supply them. So I wouldn't say in lieu of a guidance counselor, but more to supplement the services of a guidance counselor. Student Success Agency, or SSA, has a group of people called agents, and think of it as like a talent agent or some kind of like representative or personal assistant to a student to really help them with whatever their goals are and whatever they need. It could be things from academics, personal goals. It could be something about their art, or somebody to just, connect with, because it's a tough world to connect with people authentically. So,
Right.
we really do establish meaningful relationships with our students.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, Noah, about like my timeline with SSA, it even started before 2019. I think 2018 is when I started getting like word of what SSA was, because my best friend, we went to community college together, And
Hmm.
she was currently working at a student success agency, and she was like telling me a little bit about what she does. And I was like, oh, this sounds really interesting. Like, are they hiring? Because, as college students, it's sometimes hard to find a job while you're also
Right.
studying. So,
Yeah.
finding an opportunity to make some extra cash on the side, but also making an impact at the same time seemed like a really cool opportunity to take advantage of. And so she was telling me this thing about SSA, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I can apply. So I remember reaching out to Justin Cyrus. He is head of operations at Student Success Agency. And I reached out to him and I was like, hey, really interested in this thing. What is it? What do you look for in an agent? What's the application? Do I need to put anything together? And he told me, oh, actually, you just missed the deadline. We don't open until next year. So that
Dang.
was in 2018. And I was like, oh, shoot. Like, I really wanted to, like, get into this thing that,
Yeah.
we do a really good job with students. And so I was like, oh, man. So I had to wait an entire year into
Yeah.
2019. And so 2019 comes around, and it was like the summer of that year, around July, August, somewhere around there. We go through the 3-stage interview, which is very intense because people are
Hmm.
asking very creative questions. They really wanted to get to know you. And then I was offered to be an agent, and that had started in end of August, early September of 2019. And I got my first batch of students. I started with 4 students, and
Hmm.
these 4 students came. I don't know if they were all from the same state or from different ones, but started with 4 because they wanted us to start working our way up as we get more students on our
Yeah.
roster. And then I don't know, Noah, if you and I got connected in 2019 or if it was the pandemic that we
It
connected.
was it was 2020, so
Okay.
right in the middle of the pandemic, July 2020.
Oh my gosh. And that's
Yeah.
4 years. That is four
I know.
years that has gone by so quickly. I feel like we've lost so much time after the
I
pandemic.
know. Right?
And so, yeah, so like you and I became, we connected. So you were my student, in 2020. And I think it wasn't until, was it 2022 or 21 that you left as a student and then you came back as an agent?
It was 2021. I had you, I
Okay.
think, like exactly a year because I graduated out of SSA in July 2021. And then
Right.
that's when we started talking about like the application process because the timeline matched up like perfectly for me to move out of SSA and then start the application process for the next school year. So yeah, 2021 is when I left and then rejoined SSA.
Oh my gosh. See, time is flying and I'm
I
losing concept
know.
of time every day.
Same.
And so then within Student Success Agency, we as agents also have the opportunity to help out in different ways within the company. So one of those things that I did was I was an onboarding specialist. And basically, an onboarding specialist was helping students kind of get acclimated to connecting with their agent and really making sure that they are setting expectations with their agent to ensure that they're successful in whatever they are, trying to accomplish.
Hmm.
I also was during the pandemic when kickoffs, and for those who don't know, kickoffs are kind of these events that we have at various school districts across the country where we're trying to get students excited about joining SSA. And because, their school is paying us to partner with them and to help their students and provide
Yeah.
so much support for them. So, these kickoffs used to be in person, but then when the pandemic came around, we stuck with a virtual format of everything. So when it was virtual, our CEO EJ Carrion, he needed to craft a team of people to really get students excited, even though we were in a virtual modality. And I was a speaker, so I was part of the group of people. I think there were 7 or 8 of us, I believe, that we were presenting to these schools, and we would hop on Zoom. So it was great. It was very convenient because,
Hmm.
at 12 o'clock on a Monday, I would be talking to a school district out in North Carolina. And then 2 hours later, I would be connecting with somebody in Texas. So it just was really great to kind of, bounce around with that and get students
Yeah.
excited. And so that was for a little bit, but then we transitioned out of having a virtual team because after the pandemic had calmed down and was officially not a pandemic from a global health standpoint, then
Right.
we finally, and then we had an in-person group of people who are really doing an incredible job
They are,
with,
not to cut you off, they are
yeah.
the best people in the entire world.
Oh my God, talk about just it's like I short circuit with the amount of talent that this group has because everybody
Right?
comes from something different. We have poets and we have people in public
Yeah.
policy and it's just like and people who do public speaking for a living, and it's really cool to see that that team is actively engaging with students live,
Yeah.
when we do have these kickoffs. So I was in charge of kickoffs and not in charge, but I was a part of helping out with the kickoffs. And then we transitioned out of that. And then I was a team lead, basically kind of like a team manager of, leading a group of agents to ensure that
Hmm.
they are set up for success.
Yeah.
Because in order for us to support our students, we have to support our agents.
Yeah.
So as a team lead, I was in charge of kind of making sure that that was happening. And then I transitioned out of that because then I got a full time job at a university in my state, just so I could do that, but still part of SSA. And now I'm just, an agent and I'm serving a bunch of students and I'm really fortunate about it. So I think that's where it leaves us to today.
Sweet. That's amazing. It's so cool to see, like,
Yeah.
we've had discussions at length about how much we love and believe in this job, and I think the fact that you have done so much in like the four, how many years have you been doing this now? 4 or 5 years?
This September, I would have been at SSA for 5 years.
5 years. I
Uh
mean,
huh.
it seems like a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, 5 years isn't super long.
Hmm.
Just the amount of stuff you've been able to achieve and accomplish in your tenure with SSA is very inspiring.
Mm.
Because all I've been in SSA is an agent. I would love to branch out eventually. I'm kind of just like waiting for any opportunities that they like kind of put out there for me to like grab at.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned kickoffs. I got to attend kickoffs this year in Arizona because like I said, I was a student in the program. Now I'm an agent. I love this job and I love my students. It like really changes the game to see the like real life impact that it has on students. Because Cynthia and Donovan were the speakers in Arizona that week that I joined them. I got to be
Mm.
roomies with Donovan for the week, share his space and like watch them work, and to see like at every level how dedicated these people are to this job and to the students. It like gives you a whole new perspective on the kind of work that we do. Yeah, it just kind of opens your eyes to the possibilities, I guess, and the power of supporting young people, I guess.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think if there happens to be any agents listening to this, I think my advice would be to continue finding ways to take part in stuff like that, to kind of open yourself up to all of that stuff so you can experience it, because like I'm telling you, like you are not going to be disappointed in any way, shape, or form. And I'm sure you like you said, you have similar experiences, so that's incredible. So I have a test audience that I sent the first episode to. I want to be kind of like candid about doing this kind of thing because I feel like it I don't know, makes it seem more less like an untouchable personality, and like I'm just listening to like a human be human, I
Mm.
guess.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
this next question that I have for you, and it's not necessarily a question about you, I guess. I'm kind of just curious to know if you have an opinion on it. When you set out to do something like a podcast, for example, or any
Hmm.
type of like creative thing, do you think it's better to authentically showcase yourself, or is it better to find a way to blend your rhythm with the way that something quote works, or like what's already established. I'm usually not the one guiding a conversation, to be completely honest. So I'm just curious what your course of action would be in that type of thing, or if you have any thoughts.
Yeah. I think, it's funny because it's like it's really hard to change who you are when it's
Right.
so embedded in your DNA. Like if you're already naturally like a very introverted person, but you are working on, let's say, public speaking skills,
Hmm.
I think that putting yourself and forcing yourself to be in an environment like recording a podcast, where you kind of just, you have notes in front of you, but you don't have a script in front of you, so you're kind of
Yeah.
just like thinking things on the fly. And it's a really good skill to kind of, this is gonna sound really funny, but like I feel like my most valuable learning experiences about who I am as an agent, as an artist, as a human, as a brother, as a neighbor, as a son, and so forth, is putting myself in situations that have made me uncomfortable, and
Hmm.
getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's things like that where, I come from a theater background,
Yeah.
so I came from a theater background, and the reason that I got into it was because I was very introverted and I didn't have a lot of friends, and I didn't um I was not able at the time, and I was very very young, where I wasn't able to make friends and connect with people and talk to people while looking at them in the eyes. And
Hmm.
so it was a very difficult situation for me, but then once I got into theater, where I was forcing myself to present something in front of other people with or without judgment, then people, you start to realize that, um, you know, the biggest critic is yourself.
Yeah.
And so, I think that everything, whether it's starting a podcast or, for me, it's like writing a musical or writing a Netflix special or whatever it is, something that I'm very interested in doing from a creative hobby standpoint. It's those things where, you kind of have to force yourself to, be vulnerable and allow people to provide feedback.
Yeah.
So it's those instances where when you do get uncomfortable, I know it like feels very weird at first, but
Yeah.
eventually over time it becomes second nature.
Mm.
And if something's really important to you and you really want to do it, then you find a way to do it.
Yeah.
And that's literally, that can literally be applied to anything. If you want it that bad, if you really really want it, you're going to find a way to do it. So that's probably what I would say about, getting into something new maybe, and then, figuring out, okay, does this work, does that work, because everything's kind of like trial and tribulation, not trial and tribulation, trial and error. It's all like you give something a go, and then maybe you fall flat on your face, and then you're like, okay, that really did not work, but I have two options. I either can try again or I give up right now. And so then you kind of choose the former, which is, I'm going to do this again. And then maybe you fall on your face again. And it's like, okay, do I do it again or do I quit?
Right.
So maybe the option is to keep going.
Yeah.
Because what if the next time that you do it again, you don't fall on your face? And then it's really cool because you're like, oh, wow, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't expect this to be my experience. I'm actually learning something new. So that's kind of what I would say. I hope that answers your question, but, that's that.
100%. Our fearless leader, Justin Cyrus, asked me in the last episode what my superpower is. And I think it's an interesting question, so I would like to turn it around on you and ask what you think your superpower is.
I Oh my goodness. I think that my superpower, um, I don't know if I'm gonna have a really cheesy one or if it's gonna fit the mold that Justin had answered it, or that you had answered it. But, I think that if I had a superpower, um, I think mine right now is my ability to make people feel like they belong. I think that that is, I don't know if you're looking for like my superpower is flying or being
No,
invisible or something like
that's
that.
perfect. That's yeah, because mine was
Okay.
corny, so that's that's good.
Okay, so I'm gonna stick with my corny answer. So yeah, I think my superpower is making people feel like they belong in wherever they want to be in. Because I think that oftentimes we find ourselves in spaces where we'll doubt that, oh, do I need to be here? Should I be here?
Mm-hmm.
Because these people kind of fit this mold and I'm kind of over here doing my own thing. Does that make me weird, or does that make me different, but not in a good way? But I feel like when I do have conversations with people who do have those experiences, I think I'm very good at just ensuring or be reassuring to them that, hey, like whatever space that you want to be in and the space that you feel like you do belong in or want to belong in, you do belong there. We all have a space that we belong in. So I think that my superpower probably is just really convincing people that, hey, there is a space out there where you will belong, and if you're not in the right one, that's okay, because you will find that space. So I think that's my superpower.
I love that, especially working with students. Sometimes you just hear like the the saddest, like, like craziest things from people about like their environment and everything. So to be at
Mm.
least one person in someone's life to just kind of unapologetically always be like a rock and a support is such an important thing. So thank you for being that person to so many people in your life, to your students. It's a great quality to have.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and I think that it's, you know, what I intend to do while I'm still here on this earth is to like empower people to also feel like they can manufacture a space if they can't find one. So if you
Yeah,
are kind of just like you really don't fit in anywhere that you want to be in, make that space, like
yeah,
like I don't know if you want to bleep this, but like god damn it, like make that space, like
yeah,
do what you need to do, to really just feel like you're going to create a community of people that also feel the same way that you feel. And if you can't find that space, make the space, and then
exactly.
boom, that's the space that you belong in because you created it, and this is your it's your baby, it's your community.
For sure. Yeah, because then too, when you do that, it attracts other people who or maybe you're in the same predicament, and now you've become like, I don't know if martyr is the right word, but like you've become like the spearhead of this new group of people that now have a community. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
for
it's
sure.
almost like creating like the cool island of misfit toys. Like it's
Yeah,
like you're like, oh my, like we're not really misfits, right? But we are also
yeah,
just kind of like okay, if I'm gonna be on my own island, then it's gonna be my island. But if you can't find the group or you feel like groups are not letting you in, then you can technically give them the middle finger and say, you know what? If that's not going to work, then I'm going to create the space that makes me feel included, and then people are going to be inspired by that and be like, oh my god, I'm going to join that space. And then more and more
yeah.
people kind of start pouring into that community that you manufactured, so then you start seeing the fruit of something really cool. So that's what I would say about that too.
I'll be honest, I'm not. I'm very good at the like relationship building aspect of this job. But
Hmm.
a personal goal of mine this year is to get better at the academic slash agent part of this
Mm.
job. To speak like way too highly of myself, I think I'm an excellent mentor,
Mm,
but
yeah.
I need to work on being a better agent because those
Mm.
things technically aren't the same. So yeah, I think I talked about it with Justin too. Like I'm good at hitting all the reach outs and stuff, but like the new Winbox stuff and like action items and stuff like that, I need to get better at like being more of an agent, because
Mm.
yeah, I think I'm good at like leveling with them. I have an amazing relationship with all of my students, but I think being able to hit every aspect of, being a good mentor, a good friend, a good older brother figure, but also supporting them and like giving them the resources to like actually hit their goals is like where you strike gold as an agent. So that
Mm.
is my personal goal for 2024, to really hone in on that specifically. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And I was gonna add, I think that's really important because I just want to add real quick for those who may not be aware. So we have this new system that's called the Winbox. It's like basically a database where we're keeping track of information about our students in a way where we're
mhm.
kind of setting up different plans and goals, and keeping track of their interests and whatnot. And so it's a relatively new database, implementation that SSA has instituted. And so we're all of us are really getting used to this new thing. And I would agree, Noah. I think that that's a goal of mine too, is, we're really good at being mentors and being very supportive, but when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
actually like documenting our processes and documenting exactly, information about our students and what they
Yeah.
provide to us, it's like sometimes I forget that, and I just let
Yeah.
like an entire month go by, and I'm like, oh, all of this could have literally been recorded, but
Yeah.
I forget already. So then you kind of have to like,
Backtrack
strangely
and
like look, yeah, you have to like read
yeah.
back on conversations with the student, and you're like, ah, shoot, when did they say that they wanted to become a veterinarian or
Yeah.
that thing? I'm like, oh man, like this could have been done a lot earlier. But I would concur that that's a goal of mine as well. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
We're being candid here on the pod, everyone.
Right. We know what we're really good at and things that we really need to work on. And
Yeah, exactly.
and the latter was, we need to work on this win box. But it's a new
Right.
thing. So it's funny because I
Yeah.
think that a lot of us are still learning this new system. And it's been around for a few months now. So it's not like it's a
Yeah.
completely novel thing, but it's also it's still a young thing that's, still being tweaked. So we're still kind of working on that, but TBD on perfecting the win box,
Right.
if you will. So yeah.
So yeah, we are incredibly lucky to be young people that love what they do. I'm so lucky that I don't have to go clock in and stand at a register for 8 hours anymore.
Mm.
But unfortunately, that's not the reality for every young person out there. Do you have any advice for someone who maybe doesn't love what they do, or maybe they're working towards something greater, but
Mm.
right now it's just like life in the trenches feels like there's no way out. Like you're kind of just like doing the work to survive, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's just like tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that there's no worse feeling than feeling stuck. It is feeling like you are in wet cement and the cement is quickly solidifying around you, and you have to make a decision whether you want to get out of the cement or stay in it, because once you stay in it, you're locked into something, and that's what it
Hmm.
often feels like. And so that feeling really sucks. I mean, like I've felt that multiple times in my life. Recently in the last year, I felt that way a little bit about my job and transitioning into something new and whatnot. And so it's one of those things where, feeling stuck is, I would frame it in a way where it's more of a feeling than it is of an actual status.
Mm,
It is less about like this, like what's the status of your career? Well, it's not going to be stuck because nobody knows what that means, but
yeah.
you feel stuck. It's almost like, I'm in the groove of this one job or this one project, and I'm not loving it. I'm not liking it, and I'm not liking who I'm becoming because of it, all of this different stuff. And so I think that if I have advice for somebody who feels that way, I think, there's this one podcast that I listen to quite often. It's Mel Robbins. She has it's on Spotify, so go and check her out. She has millions of people that are listening in and all this different stuff. And she talks about kind of like instituting the change in your life and creating the world that you wish to see.
Hmm.
And the thing that she says is that no one is coming to save you. No one's coming to save you, which means that the responsibility to make the change in your life relies on you.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we have to take into account a lot of different things, a lot of different environmental influences and factors for an individual. So for some people who may come from a more affluent community, they come from money, they come from a variety of resources and opportunities, and so rarely are they going to feel stuck. They may feel stuck in other ways, but when it comes to kind of either making a lateral move in their job or being promoted or transitioning into a new industry or doing something different, that is a little bit more seamless to them because they have the money, they have the resources. Whereas you have these other counterparts who come from a not so affluent socioeconomic background, where they're working that 9 to 5 job and they're working at a register and they're being paid hourly, and they have
Yeah.
to, with inflation and everything, and the cost of everything has, risen. It's ebbing and flowing. And um, these same people who are working these 9 to 5 jobs, who are either working hourly, even salary people, like, oftentimes they just, they can't really just leave. Like, they can't just quit their job
Yeah.
and then go hiking in the Himalaya mountains or go backpacking in Europe, in Western Europe. Like, they
Right.
can't just like drop what they're doing and leaving, because they may be responsible for the life of their kids or their parents
Hmm.
or their pet or something like that. And so it's easy to say for us to be like, oh, like, if you want to get out of something, oh, just get out of it. Oftentimes it's
Yeah.
not that easy, and I think it should be very comforting to people who are listening right now who may feel stuck. It's it's a feeling, it's not a status, it's not who you are. And it's important to realize that it may take time to get out of what you're doing, but it's important to recognize that not everybody is in the same position or has the same resources to make the changes that they wish to see in themselves. And so, if you want to work towards that change, um, something like applying for different jobs, that could easily be something that is within your control. Working on your resume, working on your interview skills. If it's a project that you've fallen out of love with, okay, then, you know, that project can stay in your Google Drive or wherever it's stored, and you can come back to it.
Hmm.
But why focus on something that you're not loving when you could just be focusing on something that gets you excited and out of bed every single day? And
Yeah.
kind of switching that, and it really comes down to how we see the world versus what we're doing with the world. How we're viewing ourselves relative to other people. We can't be comparing ourselves and saying, well, Jimmy over here is making 90K a year and he's able to climb up the corporate ladder, this thing and that thing. Okay, great for Jimmy, happy for Jimmy. But
Yeah.
guess what if Jimmy's really unhappy with what he's doing? Jimmy could literally just be like, okay, I'm making good money, but this is not my calling. This is not what I want to do. And so I would assume that Jimmy's going to do something about it. I'm going to assume that, I don't know why I chose Jimmy, so just bear with me, but I'm going to assume that he is going to do something. He may change his resume. He may apply for a different job. He may take a break from work. So I think that the starting point for people who need to change where they are so they don't feel stuck or they feel like they have no way to get out is to kind of reframe the way that you think about yourself and the world around you, and say that, okay, if I can't get out now, it will happen eventually.
Hmm.
You will find a way to get out of what you're trying to get out of.
Yeah.
It may be an uphill climb and it may take a year or 2 years, but you know, we were, Noah, you and I were just talking about how, it's literally been almost 3 years since
Yeah.
you've joined SSA. 3 years has literally gone by, and it's like, oh my goodness, like
Flown.
that has flown. So, not getting too fixated on the temporal part of feeling stuck, but more so just, I'm not asking people like, hey, think more positively, because it's not that
Yeah.
easy.
Right.
But reframe the way where it's like, okay, if I'm going to change something, that responsibility lies within me. I'm going to make that change. I don't know how, I don't know when, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's going to start with me, because if nobody
Yeah.
else is going to come save me from this crappy job, it's going to be me.
That's a very helpful insight to have as someone who has felt stuck and is kind of in that like weird transition period right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think my advice would be to remind yourself why you are doing something. Like, why did you
Mm.
start? Um, and at the very least, it'll pick you back up on your feet. You'll have to still, like you said, it might be an uphill climb. You still have to put one foot in front of the other to keep going. But sometimes all you need is that little pick me up to, you know, take a look around you and kind of reflect on what's going on, and then make a decision from there.
I love what you mentioned about the why, because it really does. It fundamentally comes down to the why, because that's
Yeah,
the inception of the whole thing that you're doing right now. It's the reason that you're there.
exactly.
I think it's a very valuable point. So thank you for bringing that up.
So reflecting on everything you've done,
Hmm.
SSA, school, your personal life, your current job, what has been the most valuable? lesson you've learned, either about something or about yourself?
Hmm. I think, because 2023 was a challenging year in a way where I was still new in a job, and I had certain people at work that I wasn't really vibing with, people in leadership, people not in leadership. And it created lots of moments of stress and anxiety for me. And so, what I would say probably is the most valuable thing I learned, was very rudimentary, so bear with me, but really was controlling the things that I could, control, the things
Mm-hmm.
about me that I can only control, and then the external factors that are beyond my control, I need to leave those the heck alone, because they are nowhere near my reach, and it is impossible to do anything with them. And so I think that in 2023, there were so many moments where I got so, I'm going to be honest with you, in 2023, there was a moment in May where I was like, I want to quit my job. This sucks. This is
Yeah.
awful. I'm underpaid. This is stupid. This person is this way and this person's that way, and yada, yada, yada. And I was just making all this other BS excuse about this thing and that thing. And I was so focused on what other people were doing wrong versus how I was viewing things wrong. So
Mm.
then when I started to kind of be a little bit more humble with myself and say, oh, well, um, my boss could be a certain way, or my colleagues can be a certain way, or this person in leadership can be a certain way. I can't change other people's personalities. I can't change the way people respond to moments of stress and anxiety. The only thing that I can control is how I respond. Anytime
Yeah.
that somebody would come up to me, about something, I instantly was triggered and I felt stressed about something, but the stress came out of nowhere. There was
Yeah.
no reason to be stressed. They didn't do anything to stress me out. But then I started to create my own stress. So then I start thinking to myself, okay, why do I keep fabricating this stress for myself that shouldn't be there, because there's nothing to be stressed about?
Yeah.
And then anxiety, that's an in progress thing, because I think that oftentimes we all have an ebb and flow with our relationship with anxiety. But it's our moments it's those moments in time where we have to respond to high levels of stress, and it's challenging and it's not easy and it's hard to be honest with yourself. But I think the most valuable thing, at least in 2023, was just really taking it. I think just acknowledging that I was in control of what I need to do,
Yeah.
and in control of how I respond to situations, and how I mitigate stress and anxiety, because then that in turn helps me feel more empowered. It makes me feel more confident. It makes me feel more competent, and
Yeah.
it also just really makes me feel good, and it starts to reduce that stress. Does it eliminate that stress? Oh God, no, no.
Yeah.
My stress is always going to be there.
Right.
I literally sometimes look like a rancid chihuahua running around an office. Like, it literally can look like that sometimes with my stress. That's what it feels like sometimes. But
Yeah.
I think that oftentimes we have to take a moment with ourselves and almost have like a one-on-one with ourselves, and just be like, what's going on with us? Like, let's not focus on what other people are doing. Let's focus on what we're doing, you
Yeah.
and I, independently. That has been very valuable.
Lastly,
Mm.
what is next for you? What big things can we expect from Matthew Gottlieb in 2024? In the the 5 year, the 10 year. What are you up to?
Oh my God, what a great question that I could probably go on for half an hour, but I don't want to eat up that much time. So I think I'm really excited about this year because, this year is, it is a year of transition for me,
Mm.
because it's funny that I was talking about, I want to leave my job. So I did eventually leave my job for another one at my university.
Okay.
A really cool opportunity to make more money, to be a part of a new team, and all this different stuff. So I'm really excited about that. Just to give you a recap of what the past 4 days have looked like, or yeah, looked like. That's what I meant to say. So on Saturday, I had moved out of my apartment,
Okay.
and I it was for the first time that I had ever, like, hired a moving company to package some things and to wrap my couches and to move
Yeah.
it out. And it was a crazy adult thing that I was
Yeah.
like up at 6 a.m. stressing out. I was like, oh God, like what if the movers don't show up, and now I
Right.
have to be out. Like my lease ended yesterday, so I'm off the hook. But like at the time, like I was still under contract with my apartment, and so I was like, oh shoot, like what if things go wrong? It went perfectly, as as great as it can be. So the move was Saturday, and then this new job that I was just describing, my first day is tomorrow. So
Nice.
I get to go to a new office, still in the same city because I work in Baltimore. So still the same city, same campus and everything, but just a different part of the campus. And I moved out of my apartment because I will be in the process of buying my first home. Um, I
Nice.
I'm very nervous about it because I know that there's a lot of different economic factors that are kind of playing into whether it is feasible this year to
Yeah.
buy a home, and so I'm kind of just rolling with the punches and seeing where it takes me. So I'll be starting that. So within like a 4 day span, I move out of the apartment, I start a new job, and then I'm starting like the home buying process. And why did I do that within such rapid succession is beyond me. I don't know why. And
Character
so
development.
character development, it just makes me a better person,
Exactly.
but some other things, some creative, there's a musical that I had been working on for a number of years, and I have been battling with whether I wanted it to be a musical theater kind of adaptation of a story that I've been developing, or whether it should be kind of like an episodic series on Netflix that I would want to propose.
Mm.
So I've been kind of like going back and forth with those different versions. But
Yeah.
this year, with the project that I have been working on, this musical project that I've been working on for quite some time, I'm hoping to workshop it sometime this year. So that has been in the works. I've been talking to some local universities to try to secure some spaces to get this thing rolling. That's been very chaotic, but it's something that really makes me happy to kind of see how other people respond to this work and
Yeah.
the feedback I can collect. And just, generally speaking, 2024, I think that this year I want to travel a little bit more.
For
I'm
sure.
trying to figure out how to get to Europe this year. So, given that I'm starting a new job and all this different
Yeah.
stuff. And because 2023 I barely traveled, I barely did a lot of that, so this year I kind of want to expand that experience.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that those, at the top of my head, are things that what I'm up to in 2024. So who knows what else the
Yeah.
year will bring. So yeah.
I'm very proud to be in your cohort. It's very inspiring to hear all of these, like, you're doing such incredible things. And it's
Thank
cool
you.
because, like, even back when I remember, like, you talking about this musical and these projects you were working on years ago. So I'm happy to see that you're still, like, even farther along in the process and, like, making it happen. And, like, the process of potentially having a house, like, that's incredible. I'm so happy for you. And I hope that this year is good to you in terms of making all of that happen.
Oh my goodness. You have a way of words, Noah. I love you so
Oh,
much. I am so appreciative of you, and so lucky to have you in my life. And I have to throw all of those comments right back at you.
thank
I'm
you.
excited to know. I mean, let me ask you. Can I ask you what 2024 brings? Like
Of
now I
course you
gotta
can.
know.
Yeah. Honestly, probably not as exciting as your all of your endeavors this year. I'm launching this podcast, which is really exciting for me. I've always wanted a podcast.
You're kicking
I'm
off the
doing it.
year on a high note.
Yes, exactly. I am. I'm really like putting everything into making this. I think it's really fun. As someone asked me
Yeah.
in the last episode, kind of like why I wanted to do it. Like I said, I've always wanted one, but it's kind of, again, I'm an artist. It kind of feels like an art project because like I'm touching every aspect of what this is, and like I want to make it like, if I have no other seasons of this podcast, I want this one to be like the best that it can possibly be. So I'm having a lot of fun developing that. I just literally last night I contacted a local company who does really good um why am I blanking? Shirt they do shirts. But he does like quality work, and he's like done stuff across the valley for different companies and
Love it.
stuff. So
Yeah.
I've contacted him about the process of like getting shirts printed. Um, I have a quote. I've been designing stuff. I'd love to launch like a clothing line this year. That's something I've always wanted to do. Um, have like my own little online store. I would
Love
also
it.
love to travel and do stuff. Me and my family have been wanting to go to Disneyland for like ever. I was supposed to go. I
Yes.
was supposed to go in 2020 for graduation, but of course we know 2020 was a hellscape. So the trip was canceled. And so I've been
Yeah.
like I'm like overdue to go, but I'm like itching to go. Yeah, I'm kind of just excited to, like I said, have this year to kind of focus on nothing but like creative endeavors and see kind of like where things land. There's a guy that I've been working with. Funny enough, we're all over the place. One of our speakers, his name's Chris. His cousin
Yeah.
has done artwork and stuff for like the NFL, the NBA. He's like working with schools to design like graphics and stuff. I've been in
Mm.
contact with him. We've been talking about ways that we can potentially use each other's skill sets. So that's been really exciting to kind of work with and see how that's going to develop. But yeah, 2024 is looking like a pretty creative year for me. So I'm excited about it for sure.
I love it. I love it. I love hearing that it's going to be a creative. I feel like this is just our year, you know? Like I know
Yeah,
that it's funny that we said that about 2020. Like I think all of us were like, "Oh my god, this is our year."
yeah,
And then to your point, you described it perfectly. It was a hellscape.
yeah,
Everything was on fire, and that's fine.
exactly.
Um, but wow, nice work. I'm so excited to see what else the year brings. Nice
Yeah.
work. I love it.
Thank you, friend. Yeah, I'm excited. Big things. Well, friends, we made it to the end of episode 2. Thank you again for listening and taking the time to spend some of your day with me and Matthew. And thank you again to Matthew for being the first guest on this podcast. We'll go from here, friends. If you don't follow the Pursuit of Us on Instagram, go ahead and do that. That's where I will be posting a lot of the updates and clips and highlights and segments from these longer episodes. So that way, you know, if podcasts aren't necessarily your thing, you could still hear and get some of the highlights and the pieces of gold that get dropped in these longer episodes in a more digestible format for a lot of people. It is the Pursuit of .us on Instagram, and on YouTube they're the full length episodes. Right now it's under my personal YouTube channel. It's just my name, Noah Munoz, the Pursuit of Us on YouTube. I'm not sure how easy it is to find them, to just like do a YouTube search and pull them up. But again, through the Instagram page, I will link both the Spotify episodes and the YouTube episodes every week that they get released. Thank you again, friends, and I will see you next week.